Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Radha Gopinath Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Mai Jaya Sudarshana Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Grindaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So we are continuing with our Shastra study. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naranjaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayam Mudirayet Nasha Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinadharinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So we are in Canto 1, Chapter 12, entitled Birth of Emperor Parikshit. We have finished until text 20. How now the qualities of Parikshit. Parikshit Maharaj has just taken birth. The king is asking the Brahmanas about him, what his character will be, and then few things to be predicted in his life. So the Brahmanas are talking about the qualities, the great qualities of Parikshit Maharaj. So we saw that until how text 20, and in text 21. So among great bowmen, this child will be as good as Arjuna. He will be as irresistible as fire and as unsurpassable as the ocean. So now, in continuation, they are saying that in terms of in terms of fighting, in terms of his strength, particularly when it comes to bow, fighting with bow, he'll be like Arjuna. There are two Arjuna Srila Prabhupada talks about, Arjuna Pandava, one of the Pandavas, and then Kartavirya Arjuna. Particularly here, the comparison is to his own grandfather, because he was such a great bowman. Arjuna's fighting has no equal. When it comes to bowman, particularly when we read, he was such a powerful warrior that he even fought with Lord Shiva, and then he fought with Indra himself, to satisfy Agni, and later he also killed millions of Nivata Kavachas, or Rakshasas belonging to a particular family who were troubling the Devatas, and then going on hiding inside the ocean, into a place where the Devatas cannot go and attack. But Arjuna had the power to go attack and destroy. So like that, Arjuna, again in the war, Arjuna, how a great boy he was. So here, the child Pan, he's compared in terms of bowmanship. He'll be like Arjuna, and also he'll be irresistible as fire. Huta Saha. Fire is very difficult to stop, right? We know, you ask any firefighter, they'll tell the dangers of fire, how it can spread so fast. And it is, even we had few months back, we had forest fire, thousands of people fighting against it. Still, it was not containable. So fire is irresistible in the sense it keeps consuming anything in its path. And then unsurpassable as the ocean. We see only one part of the ocean. Our perception is very small. As we see in the fifth canto, there are many bigger oceans, salt water, and then there is pure water, there is milk ocean, there is yogurt ocean, there is ghee ocean, there is liquor ocean, there is sugarcane juice ocean. So ocean is generally considered unsurpassable. Half of the whole universe is, or bottom part of the whole universe is covered in ocean. So the comparison is that he will be great in terms of his strength. He'll be like that. He'll be irresistible and he'll be unsurpassable. This child, text 22, this child will be as strong as a lion and as worthy as a shelter as the Himalaya mountains. He'll be forbearing like the earth and as tolerant as his parents. So, in terms of strength, he'll be like a lion. As we all know in the Shastras, plus we also know lion is considered the king of the forest because of its strength. It has huge power. So here the Parikshit Maharaj is compared to lion in his strength. And in terms of shelter, he is like Himalaya mountains is a huge mountain range which gives shelter to billions of life forms. Starting from a small worm all the way to a big birds and big animals live in Himalayas, including many humans. Srila Prabhupada talks about how mountains generally give shelter to even the poorest person who can't even have a land to do agriculture. He can go take shelter of for a mountain, which will give him fruits and roots and to eat and a cave to stay, things like that. Even in shelter of a mountain, and the mountain will provide for them as long as they want to be simple. Nowadays we are so demoniac that we are drilling the mountain to get into the various minerals and things like that. But it's it's a very sinful activity. And forbearing, tolerating like earth. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina amanadena. So there are two things that are considered very forbearing. One is tree, the other one is Mother Earth. Mother Earth is one of the most forbearing of all all our activities. We walk on her, she holds our weight, she gives food to us. In spite of all these things, we trouble her so much. People drill for her oil, they pollute the land, they do all nonsense to Mother Earth, but still she is very patiently forbearing all of our nonsense that human beings are doing. Even though we are completely dependent on her, without her nothing can survive. Our whole sustenance is because of Bhuma Devi, but still we pollute and we keep destroying the earth. We use bombs, and in terms of self defense, people bombs, they blast, they put a drill, and into hundreds of meters down, they go down and to extract oil. They take all the minerals. They do so much in addition to polluting with plastics. We do so much nonsense, but still Mother Earth is very forbearing, and she's still giving and maintaining us. So that's why here, in terms of forbearing, the king is compared, King Parikshit is compared to Earth, Bhuma Devi. And tolerance as his parents. Generally, the most tolerant people are parents, right? The father and mother. Particularly, mother has to be very tolerant because she has to carry the child 9 months in her womb. So it's not a joke, right? She has to carry, the kid in her shoulder. Sorry, if we have to carry a kid in our shoulders, like we may probably do for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maximum 1 hour, 2 hours. But after that, we will just put the kid down because we will take some, we'll get some break. But whereas the mother, she constantly carries the child for 9 months. So how tolerant she should be. And similarly, father, the whatever the boy or a girl, even if they do big mistakes, still the parents forgive them. Srila Prabhupada talks about, how parents are always tolerant to children for all sorts of mischievous acts. An ideal king may be possessed of all these good qualities, and child Parikshit is foretold to have all the qualities in perfection. So, this is the quality of of Parikshit Maharaj, that he'll be tolerant like parents, because a king will behave like a father and a mother combined to all the praja citizens. So it doesn't just include humans, but then it includes all the living entities within the kingdom. And like a parent, he will take care of them. So that is foretold here. These are the qualities we are talking. Text 23. This child will be like his grandfather Yudhishthira or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He'll be munificent like Lord of Kailash Hill, Shiva. And he will be resort of everyone, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, who is even the shelter of Goddess of Fortune. So the first thing is he'll be like, Pitamaha. Either he'll be like his grandfather, Yudhishthira, or Brahma in equanimity of mind. See, Maharaj Yudhishthira is considered, of most steady mind. Yudhishthira means sthira. Sthira means he is very steady, right? Yudhishthira, his mind is very steady because he is very equanimate. Equanimity is his principle. We see this in in the Mahabharata. When the war is about to start, Yudhishthira gets down from the chariot and he starts walking toward the opposite party. Everybody is like, what is he going to do? Is he going to surrender? And Duryodhana starts laughing. He thinks, oh, okay, Yudhishthira is coming to surrender. He is scared after seeing my whole army, all these great generals are there, seeing that he became very, but then Yudhishthira Maharaj goes first to Bhishma Dev, does his dandavats and asks his permission to fight. And then later he does the same to Dronacharya, and both of them, and Kripacharya, all three of them give their blessings. And they tell him that if you had started this war without asking my blessings, I cursed you. But you showed, so the thing is even in midst of when he was, standing at the precipice of life and death, still he followed all the etiquettes and the rules, and that somebody, that shows how steady his mind was. One other situation, is when at the end of Vanavas, just before Ajnatavas, at the end of their 13 years in the 14 years in the forest, about to end, there was a time when Yamadharmaraja wanted to test. So he came in the form of a deer and took the two sticks that are used by Brahmanas to start the fire and ran away. And then the Brahmana comes to he comes to Pandavas and begs them, please get my sticks back. Without that, I can't do my daily sacrifice. So they go in searching of the deer, and then they become very thirsty, and then Yudhishthira Maharaj sends one by one of all his brothers to get water. They go to a pond, and when they are about to drink water, there is a voice that comes, say, a crane tells that, see, I am the owner of this lake. Without my permission, you cannot drink the water. But Nakula, Sahadeva, Bhima, Arjuna, none of them listens. They drink the water and they die. Finally, Yudhishthira comes there, and then the crane, he repeats the same. But this time, Yudhishthira Maharaj listens. He says, "Okay, you ask questions, I'll answer." So this part is called Yaksha Prashna, because the crane, he asks, "Who are you?" A crane cannot kill my brothers. Then he takes the form of Yaksha. And then Yaksha Prashna means question, because it's the questions that are asked by Yaksha and answered by Yudhishthira Maharaj. It's wonderful. It's a set of 124 questions, total 124 questions. So it's a question and answer. So, one of the acharyas, when he writes a commentary, he says that, how steady somebody should be. 4 of his brothers are dead. He is in such a situation. He's in forest. All his future is dependent on these 4 brothers, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula. They are there. His strength. Without them, there is no hope of regaining the kingdom or, doing anything. And they lie dead, and they are very, very dear to him. They are very, very dear to him, and they die. They are lying dead. And he is not retaliating in a negative way. He understands, yes, this lake belongs to you. This water belongs to you. So without your permission, they drank, and that's why they deserve this death. So he is very equanimity. His mind is very steady. Yudhishthira means one who is very steady. So here, in terms of equanimity of mind, he'll be like his grandfather, or like Brahmadeva. Brahmadeva being the first, created entity in the whole universe. So he is compared, in terms of equanimity, he'll be compared to Brahma or Yudhishthira. And then in terms of munificent, in terms of giving, he'll be Lord Shiva. One of the names of Lord Shiva is Ashutosha. Ashutosha means one who is very easily pleased. Lord Shiva gives anything his followers, asks. Ravana, Prabhupada writes about how Ravana became very powerful because he was able to please Lord Shiva. But then when he fought with Lord Rama, Lord Shiva did not help him because he knew that he is fighting against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Shiva, being a devotee, did not help Ravana in that case. But then, even though he knew Ravana is a demon, there are many, many demons. Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about Vrita. Once asked Lord Shiva that whoever I touch my hand, they should burn. And then Lord Shiva gives. And then, he starts chasing Lord Shiva himself. And then finally, he has to be saved. So the point is that Lord Shiva is very easily pleased, and he gives anyone whatever they want. So in that way, in terms of munificent, that's why he is compared to Lord Shiva. And then finally, in terms of shelter, he is compared to Narayana. Like Himalayas, similarly, ultimate shelter of everything is Vishnu, right? Even Lord Brahma in the form of lotus is lying in the belly button of Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu is the ultimate shelter of everything. All the material universe, it comes from the pores of the body. Millions of universes are created and then they are absorbed back. So he is the ultimate shelter, including even goddess of goddess of fortune. So it is very important to take shelter, and then like that, the king will be shelter, similar to Lord Vishnu. Also in the Shastra, it is considered king is a representative of the Lord. Like Guru is a representative of the Lord. Similarly, the king is considered a representative of the Lord. So that's why he is considered also, here he is compared to Vishnu. So the Brahmanas are continuing their the predictions of the qualities of king of the child Parikshit. Text 24. This child will be almost as good as Lord Sri Krishna by following in his footsteps. In magnanimity, he will become as great as King Ranti Deva, and in religion, he will be Maharaj Yayati. So, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he talks about, how, Krishna, and then we have certain qualities. The Jiva has many similarities with Krishna, but at the same time, we can never, even though we can never achieve the same status as Krishna, we see that sometimes Krishna can extraordinarily empower his devotees. We will see later in Bhagavatam, Priyavrata, how he was able to be the second son. There was already a sun going around and giving. He was not happy, because when the sun is in the north, in the south doesn't get light and things like that. So he started following Surya Deva, and he created the second Surya. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says, anything is possible for a devotee of the Lord. That's why you'll see that sometimes the devotees are also addressed as Bhagavan. For example, Narada Muni will be addressed as Bhagavan, Brahmadeva will be addressed as Bhagavan. The reason being, they are as good as Bhagavan in the sense they are empowered by Krishna himself personally. So here when they say, he will, that's why the rishis say he'll be like Krishna in terms of following Anuvrataha, following his footsteps. Both are important. He will be like Krishna. How he will be like Krishna? By following, not imitating. There are two different things, following and imitation. Following means listening to the instruction. Imitating means trying to do what Krishna did. Like, Krishna lifted Govardhan, I will also lift Govardhan. People don't generally do that. They will say, Krishna did Ras Leela, I will also do Ras. So that is nonsense. That is rascaldom. But, following in the footsteps, he will be, then you achieve the same quality as Krishna. Also, Ranti Deva. Ranti Deva was very, great king who, Srila Prabhupada writes how, he satisfied Vishnu or through charity, there's a great story. We will read about Ranti Deva in the future, verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Yayati. So Yayati is the great emperor and the original forefather of all the lines, whether it is Kurus, Yadus, all of them. Their original forefather is Yayati. The story of Yayati we will hear in the future verses of how he married the daughter of Sukracharya, and then also he married her friend and a slave who was a princess, and then he was later cursed by Sukracharya, and then he had 5 sons, and then he became very old, and then he wanted to still enjoy, so he asked the sons, can you give your youthfulness to me, right? And one of the sons gave it, and that's why he became the Kuru, and the dynasty came from that son, and that's why it became the prime line. So Yayati later in his life, he did thousands and thousands of yajnas, and for the many years, Mahabharata initial few chapters, it describes for thousands of years he did sacrifice, and through that he achieved such great piety that he was able to go, he had the free will to travel to all the upper planetary system, even to the, to the planet of Lord Brahma. So that's why here, in terms of following Dharma, he, he is compared to Yayati Maharaj. Text 25. This child will be like Bali Maharaja in patience, a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna like Prahlad Maharaja, a performer of many Ashwamedha horse sacrifices, and a follower of old and experienced men. So, here again, the qualities is that is in terms of patience. He will be like, Bali Maharaj. He compared to Bali Maharaj, because we see Bali Maharaj, he was insulted, Lord Krishna, when he took away everything, right? He was actually arrested by, Indra's, Varuna's noose, and, he was insulted. And own family men, they started cursing him, right? So both his enemies and friends were talking ill about Bali Maharaj, right? His friends were saying, "Oh, what a stupid fellow! He gave up. Sukracharya warned. He didn't listen. He lost everything because of that." And his enemies, they were laughing. "Oh, finally, we have arrested. Now he is nothing. He has no more anything. We have taken everything back away from him." But he was not disturbed in his mind, because he was super happy, because he has given everything in the service of the Lord. So in terms of patience, this is considered the highest. That treating, both when your friends and enemies, both of them, talk ill about you, still you are not disturbed. That shows real patience, right? So that's why in terms of patience, here he is compared to Bali Maharaj. And then they also predict that, following the footsteps of, he will build us, right? So even if he is a king, right, doesn't mean that he can do whatever he wants that comes into our mind. He has to follow authority. That is the sign of a devotee, right? So here we see that, he'll do many sacrifices by following the words of senior devotees. So this is very important, part of Vedic culture. We should teach our kids and ourselves as well, that when we see somebody who's elder to us, who's more experienced in Krishna consciousness, or in terms of age, we should respect them. This is natural. This used to be the culture in India few years back. Even though little bit is left out, but nowadays India also is becoming very bad in Western culture. This idea of calling people by name and teaching by name. These were, at least when I grew up, we had this concept in India. So all these things are purely Western concepts. But then we see here, but Varnashrama, even in Devi Varnashrama, it's very essential that we respect people who are elder to us. That has to be natural. These are all qualities. There is no question, whether they are, to check whether they are, whether they are qualified or not. See the qualification only to follow instructions, but in terms of giving respect, we should give respect, universally to people who are elderly to us. But when it comes to following instruction, if they are not qualified, if they are not devotees, then we may not follow the instruction. But still, we should respect them. If they are devotees, then we should follow instructions as well. Otherwise, comes a anartha or aparadha. Right? We heard that how aparad is actually worse than even sinful activities. Sinful activities can be burnt by Krishna consciousness, but aparad cannot be burnt by Krishna consciousness. So we have to be very careful. And one of the things to easily avoid is following the etiquettes. Etiquettes are there to help us avoid all these anarthas and aparadas. They help to restrict our normal mentality to do whatever we want. Text 26. This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages for world peace and for the sake of religion. He will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome. So, again, it's a prediction that his line, his sons will be Raja Rishis. Not only Parikshit Maharaj is a Raja Rishi, because that was the original question Yudhishthira Maharaj asked. Will my grandson be a Raja Rishi? And then they said, they gave all the qualities. And then they say not only he, even his sons, they will be Raja Rishis, Like we see how Janamejaya, who was the son of Parikshit Maharaj, was a great emperor, right? The whole world was also under him, and how he did a great snake sacrifice because he was upset, in which all the snakes were falling, and then later, by the request of a Brahmana, he stops the sacrifice, and then in the sacrifice he heard Mahabharat. The whole Mahabharat was narrated by in front of Janamejaya. So that's the whole. We'll see that whole story in Mahabharat. So here there is already a prediction. There were 5 sons of Parikshit Maharaj, and here it is given that all of them will be Raja Rishis, and not only that, he will also be a chastiser of upstarts and quarrelsome people of Kali. So here. This is very important to understand. The king, as I said, is like a parent. He is tolerant, he is patient, but that doesn't mean when somebody needs correction, he will not do it. He will. So this is a very important quality of a leader, right? If we call ourselves a leader, it is equally important not only to praise, right? Generally, in Krishna consciousness, we are not supposed to find anybody's fault. We are not supposed to, point out anybody's mistake. But that applies only for normal devotee. If we are leader in any sense, if we are guiding anybody, if somebody takes guidance from us, it is our responsibility to point out mistakes and help them correct. That's not only for devotees, for the kids. Nowadays, it's all, praise your kids and all those things. That's all. Should praise the kids. We should encourage them. It applies both to devotees and the kids. But at the same time, it is equally our responsibility to, correct the mistakes, chastise people for their, we only praise for a genuine good things they are doing, not just for the sake of, praising. We should praise somebody. And at the same time, when they make a mistake, it is our responsibility to chastise them or correct them. Right? This solves many problems for the devotees. Right? So it is very essential that this, of the people who mistakes. It is very essential as a leader. Initial stages, when somebody comes in Krishna consciousness, will be very tolerant. They grow in Krishna consciousness. They get the capability of the Lord to attract, with chant. Have to be removed away. With all the anarthas, it is very difficult to progress in Krishna consciousness. They stop. So it is also a responsibility of a Madhyama Adhikari to help the Kanishka Adhikari overcome the anarthas. And particularly as a king, it becomes much more, so that the atmosphere, overall atmosphere, is Krishna consciousness. It allow, in the name of freedom, anybody can talk anything, and any quarrelsome topic, talk about that, but not only that. So as a king, it is his responsibility to create the right atmosphere so that generally people can follow dharma. Now, 20, starting from the next word, they are going to predict things about about how he will, how his death will take place. Translation, text 28. After hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird sent by a son of a Brahmana, he will get himself freed from all material attachments and surrender unto the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him. So not only they predicted that he will do many yajnas, he will have sons who will be Raja Rishis, everything, they will also predicting what will happen at the end of his life. They are talking about how at the end he will be cursed by a son of a Brahmana. He'll be cursed by a son of Brahmana to be bitten by a snake, and then he will not be disturbed by that fact, and then he will give up everything, be detached, and he will surrender unto the to the Lord. Now it's very painful to hear that one will die, right? First of all, we cannot even accept our own death. it is more difficult to accept the death of our kids or our grandsons or this thing. But then here we see those days people were very equipoised. Yudhishthira was equanimity of mind. He understood, but he was actually happy that at least my grandson will get a notice of his death, and when he hears the notice, that he will use that notice to his benefit spiritually. He'll give up everything completely, be an ideal example. He'll go retire and hear Bhagavatam, and he'll completely surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here we can see how great these Brahmanas were. They were able to exactly predict, what are the qualities he'll have, what he will do in his life and how he will die. Everything they were able to predict. That shows how powerful they spiritually they were. They were, they were very advanced. You can't find astrologers like that nowadays. After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachments and achieve a life of fearlessness. Vyasa Suta means son of Vyasadeva. So here again they are predicting who will be his spiritual master at the end of his life. Right? When he gives up everything, he will ask questions that are very relevant about spirituality to Sukadeva Goswami, son of Parikshit, son of Vyasadeva, who is a great philosopher. Right? And they are saying on the banks of Ganga, they are even saying where, when, how, everything they were able to predict perfectly. Right? So here it talks about how at the end of his life, he will give up all attachments and he will surrender completely to Sukadeva Goswami, and by surrendering Srimad Bhagavatam, that he will become fearless. Srila Prabhupada in the purport talks extensively about how this material world is full of fear. He says material world is a world of fearfulness, right? But one who has surrendered to the Lord, only he can get relieved. Otherwise, even the most powerful person in the world has fear. What is the fear? Every die. Right? Even people, great demons and Hiranyakashipu, they tapasya and they wanted to achieve deathlessness. They said, please make us of death. Brahma said, no, even I can't. Even I have a fear of death. Even I have to die someday. So that is the nature of the material world. And but whereas we see that Maharaj was completely, he was not worried about his death. 7 days, fine. He was very equanimous. He said, okay, 7 days is very nice. I can now, ask questions that are relevant about Krishna, giving up everything. No, administration, king, father, gave up everything. And he heard about Krishna. So we see that, how he became completely fearless. Even at the end, when Takshaka came to bite, you will see that in the end of Bhagavatam, that he was completely, his mind was super fixed on Krishna. He had no fear that he was going to give up his body. We see that in many, many devotees. Bhishma Deva, Haridas Thakur, and then, you see Bhishma Dev, Dhruva Maharaj. We'll see many, many, many devotees. The biggest fear in the material world is the fear of death. And we see that they have easily overcome that. They were not, fearful of anything. Text 29. Thus, those who were expert in astrological knowledge and performance of birth ceremony instructed King Yudhishthira about the future history of his child. Then, being sumptuously remunerated, they all returned to their respective homes. This talks about, the Brahmanas, after, telling all this, they departed, and while they were departing, King Yudhishthira gave them lot and lots of dakshina. We talked about this in the previous verses as well. It is very important whether when we see somebody from somewhere or, if we take, samskara, if through a Brahmana comes and does, we should give them, dakshina. That is, some money has to be given. To the best of our ability, we should give. Otherwise, we prove a lot of bad karma. Or the yajna itself may not, or the samskara itself may not have value. And here we see that the king was so magnanimous that he made sure that they all went home very satisfied with much more than what they have expected. When you get much more than what you expect, you will be satisfied. That is very important. And then here in the there are three things Srila Prabhupada is talking about: Vipras, Brahmanas, and Vaishnavas. Vipras are the Brahmanas who are, generally who guide the society on the karma kanda, right? How to do this, how to do various activities, particularly to do with karma kanda. Do this yajna, do this samskara, all those things they guide. Then there are Brahmanas who are, higher Upanishad. Their knowledge is not more on karma kanda, they are more on jnana. They will read Upanishad, they will talk philosophy, they'll teach philosophy. And then finally, Srila Prabhupada talks third level about Vaishnavas who will teach us bhakti to the society. So there are three levels. One who teaches, karma kanda, he is called a Vipra. One who is jnana kanda is called a Brahmana, and then one who is, teaches bhakti is called a Vaishnava. So Srila Prabhupada talks about all these three kinds of people very extensively in the Vedic knowledge. And then, here we see all these three kinds of men. They were satisfied by Yudhishthira Maharaj by, giving them lots of charity. So that ends the third part of this particular chapter, where the qualities are described. The next 6 verses, that talks about the various sacrifices, how Parikshit grew and what are the sacrifices Yudhishthira Maharaj did. Text 30. So his son would become famous in the world as Parikshaminar, because he would come to examine all human beings, search the personality whom he saw before his birth. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate him. So he Maharaj, when he was in the womb of his mother, we saw in the previous verse how Krishna was in the size of a thumb, and he was going around along with a gada, and he was protecting, and the child was able to have darshan of the beautiful form of the Lord. And it created such a strong impression in his mind that from the moment he came out, he was only searching for him. So any human being he'll think, this the person who protected me in my womb. So he'll always think about that personality. So even though we talk about Parikshit, that he achieved perfection in 7 days, actually he was perfect from his birth. He was always contemplating on the Lord. He was always thinking about, is this Krishna? That's why he's called Parikshit. Pariksha means exam, right? Parikshit means one who constantly examines, where is Krishna, where is Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada actually in one of the classes, he talks about a devotee never said, I've seen Krishna. That, even the gopis, they're constantly, they're searching for Krishna, right? So that is a mood of a devotee. That's a perfect mood of a devotee. He's always constantly thinking, where is Krishna, where is Krishna, where is Krishna? That is higher than saying, oh, I've seen Krishna, right? So higher than that is this idea of constantly searching, where is Krishna? The gopis, they are constantly thinking, where is Krishna? So even when Krishna left the Rasa Purnima, Rasa Yatra, and went away, the gopis went searching. So in one of the places Krishna was hiding, he was showing his 400 form of Vishnu, and all the gopis, when they did dandavats, they did not ask for anything. They said, where is Krishna? Can you please tell us where is Krishna? Question asked. That of a devotee. And Srila Prabhupada also talks about his own personal, it's a very, very wonderful verse. Particularly, the purport is very moving, because Srila Prabhupada talks how when he was kid, very, very small, he was given the deity of Radha Krishna by his father, and how, he was trained from his childhood. And later, when he surrendered to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was able to revive that whole, habit of worshipping Radha Krishna. So he talks wonderfully about his realization, as a child, when you give some consciousness, it's with them forever. So he talks about the importance. And Parikshit Maharaj, in his womb itself, he had the darshan of Krishna. So throughout his life, he was a devotee. So this is very important. Prabhupada writes, Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others. So Srila Prabhupada gives a very important guidance as devotees. It's our responsibility to bring the kids in a Krishna conscious way from their very, very young age. Not by forcing them, but by inspiring them. Text 31. As the moon in its waxing fortnight develops day after day, so the royal prince Parikshit very soon developed luxuriantly under the care and full facilities of his guardian grandfathers. So here we see that Parikshit Maharaj grows under the care of his five grandfathers, each one of them special in his own way. Text 32. There's no purport to the previous verse, so we are going to the next one. Just at this time, King Yudhishthira was considering performing a horse sacrifice to get freed from the sins incurred from fighting with kinsmen. But he became anxious to of fines and tax collection. So here we see that, even though, we saw that how Yudhishthira Maharaj had wealth, that even in the beginning of this chapter, we saw how Yudhishthira Maharaj had such wealth that even the denizens of the heaven, they were, they wanted the same wealth as Yudhishthira Maharaj, right? But here we see that he didn't have surplus enough to do a sacrifice. That means whatever came, he spent everything back in the service of Krishna. He kept nothing for himself. This is very, very important for us to understand. So the Prabhupada talks about how the Vipras and the Brahmanas, they were all taken care by the state itself. The sannyasis, see, only the who, earn money. And among Grahasthas, it's only the Vaishyas and the Shudra, Vaishyas particularly, because Kshatriyas, they protect and earn wealth, and then Brahmanas, they don't do anything. They don't earn wealth, and Shudras are not allowed to save wealth. They are taken care by their masters. So it's a very small population, but then whatever tax they gave, with that the king was supposed to protect the other, everybody else, the whole Brahmanas, Sannyasis, Brahmacharis, Vanaprasthas, they were all taken care by the, society in such a nice way, so that, whatever came in, all the wealth was used in maintaining the devotees, right? So when it came to surplus, they had to again go and get, because yajna means you have to spend lots and lots of money, trillions of dollars, not millions of dollars, because everything has to be in gold, nothing, note and paper and all those things. That is there. And Prabhupada also talks about how after the war, the treasury was exhausted because so much fighting and, everything was there. So, that's what this verse talks about. And the other point to notice here is how Yudhishthira Maharaj was, even though he was a devotee, even though he conducted the war under the instruction of Krishna, still he was fearful of the fact of getting sinful, doing sinful activity. Again, this is something a devotee, we know that we are not fearful of death, we are not fearful of ourselves, but a devotee, in one of the lectures, my spiritual master says, we should always be fearful that we'll fall under Maya. That is our biggest fear as a devotee, right? We should always be careful. We should always, keep on examining our activities and see whether, even what we are doing in devotional service, we should keep self-examining our activities. That's what Yudhishthira Maharaj did here. Even though he engaged in the war because Krishna wanted it, otherwise he would have lived in a forest. As a servant of the Lord, he conducted the war. Still, he took personal responsibility for the, bad things that happened out of it, and he was trying to correct himself. This is something that is very important as a devotee, right? Even though we are doing service, still we should do the self-examination to see what are the negative qualities in us, and we should try to compensate that. So here we see that he wants to, even though he did it as a devotional service, he did not say, oh, Krishna said I did it for Krishna, so all no, nothing can touch me and all those things. Yeah, that is true, but still, the mood of a devotee is, that is, he always self-examines, try to find fault and try to correct himself so that he can do service better and better. And that's what we see in Yudhishthira Maharaja's case. Text 33. Understanding the hearty wishes of the king, his brothers, as advised by infallible Lord Krishna, collected sufficient riches from the north left by King Maruta. So King Maruta was one of great kings, emperor of the world, and he ruled the world many centuries, or thousands of years before Yudhishthira Maharaj. And Prabhupada writes how he was a devotee of Surya Deva, and he wanted to do a big sacrifice. So what is here? Mountains of gold want distributed to the Brahmanas as part of his sacrifice. He did a huge sacrifice for many years. Prabhupada talks about how everything was made with gold, that even demigods came to his sacrifice, like Indra and everything, and the inhabitants of Vayu Loka were invited to do the cooking so that it can be cooked for so many people were there, and he gave so much in charity. Prabhupada's purport, he talks about very detailedly, that he gave so much in charity, the Brahmanas, they couldn't carry it back. Right, so they took what they can carry, and then they left a lot of gold back, so the sacrificial arena was completely left out with so much, many centuries. It was just lying there, so much gold. So then, the Pandavas, Krishna suggested, when they wanted more gold to do the sacrifice, Krishna suggested that in the north, in this such and such area where King Maruta did the exercise, so much gold is there, you can go. So they fought their way all the way, went to the north, they conquered the place, and they bought all that gold. And with that gold, Yudhishthira Maharaj was able to do a huge sacrifice. And Srila Prabhupada ends the purport by saying, for Kali Yuga, we don't need all these things. The only yajna that is needed is the Sankirtan yajna. We have, sell it and then use it in the service of, Sankirtan yajna. Text 34. By those riches, the king could procure the ingredients for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious King Yudhishthira, who was very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased to Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. So here we see that, again, he was not, it doesn't, because, oh, sin, I will go to hell, I don't want to go to hell. That was not the mood. The mood is because I have engaged in warfare and killed so many jivas, who are all part and parcel of the Lord. He wanted to satisfy the Lord on the other side by doing these horse sacrifices. Again, the mood of a devotee, not for his personal self, not for going to heaven or anything, but for satisfying. The words that particularly talks about is to satisfy Hari. To satisfy Hari, he wanted to do this, gold, and they had collected so much gold from the place of Maruta that it was enough to do 3 big horse sacrifices. Because horse sacrifice means, it needs, as I said, trillions and trillions of dollars, because you have to procure so many pure things, good things. You have to buy a horse, then you have to have an army protecting the horse, then the horse is allowed to roam all around, challenge all the kings, and all the kings have to accept your superiority, and then Ashwamedha can be done. So like this 3 times, Yudhishthira Maharaj did, means so much charity, so much procurement, because Yajna Kunda and all, those days it is explained that, one Brahmana sitting cannot look at the Brahmana sitting at the other end. It will be so big. So thousands of Brahmanas, so pure land, pure ghee, and, all pure items have to be collected and used in the service. So it's a huge exercise. It needs lots and lots of money. And, we see that, Yudhishthira Maharaj was doing. Bhanu Maharaj was also talking that, in Kerala, 40-50 years back, they did one of the very, very big sacrifice, with thousands of brahmanas doing it together. And Banu Maharaj said, there was a British traveler who observed, and he wrote about the whole yajna. And then he completed by his observing by saying, this will be the last time this particular yajna is done, because in the future we'll not have anything, there cannot be resources available to do this kind of thing. And which is very true. So if that is true 50 years back, we can think how in Yudhishthira Maharaj's time what was done can never be replicated, and we can imagine how much gold and other things would have been spent on the yajna. And again, Srila Prabhupada talks about how there are, no proper qualified brahmanas who can chant the mantras like that. Particularly in Kali Yuga, it is not, recommended also to do any of these yajnas. Rather, it is always, to protect, as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this Sankirtan yajna. Just by chanting and doing kirtan, we achieve the same results that Maharaj Yudhishthira achieved through these yajnas. Text 35. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, being invited to the sacrifices by Maharaj Yudhishthira, saw to it that they were performed by qualified wise-born brahmanas. After that, for the pleasure of the relatives, the Lord remained a few months. So again we see that, Krishna came just for the purpose of Yudhishthira Maharaj. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, actually, we can say it the other way around as well, performed these sacrifices so that he can invite Krishna, and he will get the association and darshan of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he talks specifically about brahmanas. Just because somebody is born in a brahmana family, he is not qualified. And that's why he says that here Krishna personally made sure that qualified brahmanas did the sacrifice, not just any brahmana. And Vija means one who are learned brahmanas, one who are learned, experienced, and one who practices what they are preaching. Both achar and prachar has to be there. And such a brahmanas, who are great in chanting the mantras, it is very important they do it. And, just because somebody is born in that family, they are not qualified to do it. Prabhupada explains that in the purport. Text 36. O Shaunaka, thereafter the Lord, having bade farewell to King Yudhishthira, Draupadi and other relatives, started for the city of Dwaraka, accompanied by Arjuna and other members of Yadu dynasty. So, after Parikshit was born, and then we see that how Yudhishthira Maharaj, again, he did 3 sacrifices, and Krishna personally came there and conducted the sacrifices, made sure everything was perfect, and then after staying few months with them, then he left back. And this time Arjuna traveled with Krishna. That's what we see, along with the people who have come from Yadu dynasty to participate in the yajna. So this ends this chapter of birth of Parikshit. So I think we are going at a decent speed. We were able to finish this chapter in 3 weeks. The next chapter is entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. It's a little bit big chapter because there are more than 60 verses in that one of the big chapters in the first canto. There are around 60 verses, so probably we'll try to finish in the next 3 weeks that chapter, and then we'll continue from there. So again, thank you all for joining today's class. If you have any questions, you can message me 0414018739, and then I'll take it up and start the classes with the questions. With this, we'll finish the class here. Grindaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.